Let's understand the CyberRealm keycode and rate it for different styles of play. Use the CyberRealm keycode to get the untradeable server room key. Use the visit link on the server room key or navigate to the monorail station on the right side of the tracks in Seaside Town to see a new zone, the server room. There are 6 features to explore in the server room, 3 of which are labeled and 3 hidden. Let's start with the hidden features. Click on the upper right drawer in the desk to get a data stick accessory once per ascension. The data stick can be auto-sold for 50 meat or equipped to add 1 RAM. RAM is a new resource that is replenished for each new combat in the CyberRealm and can be spent to cast CyberRealm-specific combat skills. You start out with 3 RAM. Click on the bottom left drawer to see the special monsters in each zone. Each zone has 1 elementally aligned hacker and 1 elementally aligned construct monster, either of which could appear on odd-numbered combats. The monsters in Zone 1 at the top of the list are easiest to defeat, while Zone 3 monsters can be formidable, so use the special monster list in the bottom left drawer to prepare elemental resistance or attacks as appropriate. Zones are referenced by number because their names are procedurally generated anew each day. The last hidden feature is to gain a few zeros and ones from the first time clicking on the trash can each day. Zeros and ones can be spent in the Dedigitizer. The Dedigitizer initially shows 5 items for sale with space for many more. Completing a zone gives a prize of 1 Dedigitizer schematic, which opens up new lines in the Dedigitizer shop. Using your last Dedigitizer schematic of that type removes a line from the shop. Everyone gets the same Dedigitizer schematic from Zone 3 each day, while Zones 1 and 2 grant random schematics from each zone's set. Zone 1 can drop Dedigitizer schematics for the Brute Force Hammer, Digibritches, Pocket GPU, Zero Trust Tank Top, Familiar in the Middle, Crypto Cloak, Cyber Visor, Malware Injector, Trojan Horseshoe, Retro Floppy Disk, or, once you have at least one of each schematic in this list, the 3D printed server room key. Zone 2 can drop Dedigitizer schematics for the consumables Cybeer, Cyberger, and Psilocyber Mushroom. Zone 3 can drop Dedigitizer schematics for the Virtual Cyber Tattoo, Sleep 5 ROM chip, Insignificant Bit, Overclock 10 ROM chip, Hashing Vise, Geofencing Rapier, Stats+++ ROM chip, and Geofencing Shield. The price of each item can include zeros, ones, or the Dedigitizer schematic itself to show that 1 schematic is consumed for each matching item purchased. The shop does not show how many schematics you have for each item. You must check your inventory if you want to know the number of schematics you have available. You gain additional zeros and ones from defeating monsters in CyberRealm or from the tradable icebox item dropped by Blue Hat, cold-aligned hackers. Typically, it is easier to accumulate zeros than ones. Once you no longer have any Dedigitizer schematics for an item in your inventory, the item does not appear in the Dedigitizer and cannot be purchased. Most Dedigitizer items for sale are only useful for improving combat in CyberRealm, but some are more generally useful. Let's focus on those first. All Dedigitizer items can either be made at the Dedigitizer or purchased for meat from the mall. Synthetic Coffee is a tradable potion that grants 10 adventures of the unwishable effect Synthetic Buzz for an additional 50% combat initiative at the cost of 8 each of zeros and ones. 50% combat initiative may be a useful boost for various council quests, though the short duration and relatively high cost limit Synthetic Coffee's usefulness. Eye Drops is a tradable potion that grants 10 adventures of the unwishable effect Cybercrime Eyes for an additional 30% item drops from monsters at the cost of 16 each of zeros and ones. The relatively high cost and short duration mean that Eye Drops will be most useful for item farmers trying to maximize item drops in every way possible. The Cybeer and Cyberger are both super epic quality size 2 consumables, booze and food respectively, that each grant 40 adventures of the unwishable effect Connected for an additional 5 pounds of familiar weight and 5 familiar damage. The additional 5 familiar damage will only be used for familiars who attack. It won't help your levitating potato do any damage. Since the Cybeer and Cyberger each use up a Dedigitizer schematic and 32 ones when they're made, they'll be inaccessible before defeating the naughty sorcerers unless your ascension is long or you're lucky in accumulating ones and the matching schematics. The situation is similar for the size 1 Spleen item Psilocyber Mushroom that grants 80 adventures of the unwishable connected effect. The 3D printed server room key costs 128 ones, 32 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic to make a tradable one-day pass to CyberRealm for those who do not own the server room key from Mr. Store. Sadly, the 3D printed server room key is the least common of the Dedigitizer schematics to receive from completing CyberRealm zones. I have only gotten 2 this entire year. It is worthwhile to pick up a 3D printed server room key from the mall to try out CyberRealm for yourself. The tradable familiar hatchling insignificant bit costs 256 ones and the matching Dedigitizer schematic, and hatches into the significant bit with the familiar equipment parity bit to add 5 pounds of familiar weight. The significant bit can restore hit points and/or mana points, increase item and/or meat drops, and/or increase stat gains. Though the mechanism is not fully stated, the significant may determine its actions based on the opponent monster and round of battle. The insignificant bit familiar hatchling is relatively affordable in the mall, and the significant bit is a well-rounded familiar choice. The tradable virtual cyber tattoo costs 512 ones, 128 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic. The virtual cyber tattoo grants a new snazzy tattoo when used. The last 3 general-purpose items each grant a passive skill and cost 256 ones, 64 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic. Use the Overclock 10 ROM chip to get the skill Overclock 10, which removes the adventure cost for the first 10 combats in CyberRealm each day. Each zone takes 19 adventures to complete, plus a free non-combat after 9 adventures, so your first 11 actions, 10 combats, and 1 non-combat in CyberRealm do not cost adventures. Overclock 10 is most useful for players who own CyberRealm, but may be useful to bleeding-edge normal difficulty speedrunners who are willing to spend meat and 1 daily pull from Hanks on a 3D printed key. Use the Sleep 5 ROM chip to get the skill Sleep 5, which gives 5 free rests at your campground dwelling or Mr. Store Getaway Campsite or Chateau Mantegna per day. The Sleep 5 skill is useful to everyone for healing, but especially useful to owners of the Mr. Store Cincha de Mayo, which can cast additional skills if powered up by resting. Lastly, use the Stats+++ ROM chip to get the skill Stats+++, which gives 3 additional stats per combat. The effect is small, though additional stats are always helpful. All the remaining Dedigitizer items are only useful in CyberRealm itself. The hashing vise costing 256 ones and the matching Dedigitizer schematic. The hashing vise can be used to break down Dedigitizer schematics into ones and zeros for 16 in total. If you have enough Dedigitizer schematics that you don't mind trashing some, likely you also have enough ones and zeros to meet your needs. The familiar in the middle wrapper costing 64 ones, 16 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic can be equipped by your familiar to find an additional 1 after every combat. This may be useful to accumulate more ones if you don't adventure in CyberRealm often. Keep in mind that ones can also be purchased directly from the mall. The Power 100 shirt Zero Trust tank top costing 32 each of ones and zeros, plus the matching Dedigitizer schematic, can be equipped to recover 25% of your hit points during each round of combat in CyberRealm. Sadly, its healing effect doesn't trigger outside CyberRealm. The Zero Trust tank top is invaluable for surviving the tough combats in Zone 3 or any of the zones at a low character level. The back item Crypto Cloak, costing 64 ones, 32 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic, can be worn to avoid damage from the first attack from processes in CyberRealm, not hackers. The Crypto Cloak is a good choice to survive Zone 3 as well. The Cyber Visor, costing 64 ones, 32 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic can be worn to add 3 RAM each combat that you can use to cast CyberRealm skills, and also makes every combat in the Kingdom use the same green-on-black color scheme as CyberRealm, plus a few oddball actions like using Pocket Wishes. As we'll find out shortly, additional RAM is incredibly useful in CyberRealm, so you should always keep the Cyber Visor equipped while adventuring there. Whether you choose to keep it equipped while adventuring elsewhere in the Kingdom is up to you. Note that players who hate the green-on-black color scheme can disable it in combat settings. You can choose from multiple Dedigitizer options for all other equipment slots: weapon, offhand, pants, and accessory. For weapons, you can choose between the one-handed ranged weapon Encrypted Shuriken, one-handed brute force hammer, and one-handed sword Geofencing Rapier. The Shuriken is the cheapest at 16 ones, brute force hammer next at 32 ones, 8 zeros, and the matching schematic. Then the Geofencing Rapier is the most expensive at 256 ones and matching schematic. Both the encrypted shuriken and the brute force hammer do between 10 and 20 damage per hit, while the geofencing rapier does between 12 and 24 damage per hit. Each weapon also grants a skill that lets you damage your opponent at the cost of RAM. Hacker opponents can be hurt with your usual offensive attacks or skills, but processes can only be damaged by CyberRealm attacks and skills. The encrypted shuriken does 20 damage for 2 RAM, the brute force hammer 40 damage for 3 RAM, and the geofencing rapier between 150 and 200 damage at the cost of 7 RAM. Everyone adventuring in CyberRealm also has access to the skill Throw Cyber Rock to do 10 damage at no RAM cost. It can be hard to build up to 7 RAM with CyberRealm equipment, and since process enemies can have more than 300 hit points, the geofencing rapier is rarely the right choice. The brute force hammer is a good middle ground, though offhand equipment actually offers the best offensive skill. For offhand equipment, you can choose between the visual packet sniffer costing 16 ones, malware injector costing 64 ones, 32 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic, Trojan horseshoe costing 128 ones, 32 zeros, and the matching schematic, and geofencing shield costing 256 ones and the matching schematic. The packet sniffer gives a chance for an additional 1 to drop after combat, which is not as useful as the guaranteed additional 1 from the familiar in the middle and an accessory we've not yet discussed. The malware injector grants a skill Inject Malware when equipped. Inject Malware costs 1 RAM to do 30 damage to your enemy on this round of combat and every round thereafter. This adds up fast to help take down even the toughest opponents. The Trojan horseshoe lets you occasionally find extra zeros after combat when equipped. You will not lack for zeros when adventuring in CyberRealm, so the Trojan horseshoe is not a good equipment choice. The geofencing shield can be equipped to prevent most damage from processes, but not hackers where your usual skills should help. While the geofencing shield helps you survive tough Zone 3 fights, you'll likely lack the offensive power to take down your opponents without the malware injector. For pants, you can choose between the wired underwear costing 8 ones and digibritches costing 32 ones, 16 zeros, and the matching Dedigitizer schematic. The wired underwear grants a skill when worn that lets you restore half of your hit points at the cost of 1 RAM, while the digibritches let you take less damage from processes. Since RAM is at such a premium, it's best to avoid damage in the first place by wearing the digibritches. For accessories, you can choose between the Pocket GPU costing 32 ones, 16 zeros, and matching Dedigitizer schematic, or the Retro Floppy Disk costing 128 ones, 64 zeros, and matching schematic. When equipped, the Pocket GPU lets you take 1 action before your process opponent can respond. You can only equip 1 Pocket GPU at a time. The Pocket GPU may be a good choice to help you take less damage in process fights. The Retro Floppy Disk lets you find 1 additional one after every combat, and you can equip up to 3 Retro Floppy Disks for 3 additional ones. You'll gather the one's currency much faster if you can keep most or all of your accessory slots filled with Retro Floppy Disks. Whew, that's a lot of new items. We're not done with new items just yet, though. Take a look at the Interoffice mail tube to find 3 size 1 spleen items for sale for 500 meat each. Use the Drenchome 2.0 to get 30 adventures of the unwishable effect Cyber Slicer, which increases your attack damage to processes by 50%. This may be valuable if you find yourself losing to process enemies. Use Expand to get 30 adventures of the unwishable effect Cyber Memory Boost for an additional 3 RAM per combat. This may be useful to gain access to Geofencing Rapier's 7 RAM attack, though at the cost of Spleen. Use the Synapse Blaster to get 30 adventures of the unwishable effect Cyber Resist times 2000 for Superhuman +5 resistance to all elements. Synapse Blaster is particularly useful to those leveling up with Burr brand mouthwash during an ascension. Last but not least, let's take a look at the CyberRealm Terminal. This is where we gain access to the 3 new zones, numbered 1 to 3 starting from the top, with the top zone the easiest and bottom zone the most difficult. Each zone costs 19 adventures plus 1 free non-combat to complete, though the Overclock 10 skill cuts down on the adventure cost of your first zone per day. Each zone has 1 elementally aligned hacker and 1 elementally aligned process, both revealed by checking the bottom left drawer on the desk. Elemental monsters appear every other combat, while the remaining combats are with non-elementally aligned process monsters. The Red Hat Hacker and Firewall are hot aligned, Blue Hat Hacker and Ice Barrier are cold aligned, Green Hat Hacker and Corruption Quarantine are stench aligned, Purple Hat Hacker and Parental Controls are Sleaze aligned, and the Gray Hat Hacker and Null Container are Spooky aligned. Use the type chart to find elemental attacks that exploit each elementally aligned monster's weaknesses. Keep in mind that hackers are damaged by your usual attacks, spells, and combat items, while processes can only be damaged by CyberRealm attacks, spells, and combat items. Make sure you have gear equipped to help with both defense and offense for process fights. Note that wandering monsters from the Mr. Store Monster Habitat skill can appear in CyberRealm zones, but oddly not monsters from the Mr. Store skill Digitize. Processes do not drop any items, not even avatar potions from Monster Manuel, sadly, but hackers can drop useful tradable items. Red Hat hackers drop logic grenades, a combat item that can be used to instantly kill process enemies. Blue Hat hackers drop ice boxes, which can be used to get a total of 16 ones and zeros per ice box. Ice boxes are a great way to build up your stash of CyberRealm Dedigitizer currency. Green Hat hackers drop glitched malware, a combat item that can be used to banish a process for the rest of the day. Purple Hat hackers drop digital honeypots, a potion that can be used to get 90 adventures of the unwishable effect honeypotted to attract more hackers. Using a digital honeypot can help you get more Blue Hat hackers for more iceboxes when they appear in a zone. Lastly, Gray Hat hackers drop Null Day Exploits, a potion which can be used to get 30 adventures of the unwishable effect Null Afternoon to adjust enemy stats to 0. Unlike the other hacker item drops, Null Afternoon does affect enemies outside of CyberRealm. Use a Null Day exploit to make enemies easier to defeat regardless of where they appear in the kingdom. Each CyberRealm zone has an elemental test matching its elemental process halfway through zone completion. If you choose to take the elemental test and win, you receive between 0 and 8 zeros from Zone 1, 0 to 16 zeros from Zone 2, and 0 to 32 zeros from Zone 3, along with elemental damage. There is no penalty to skipping the elemental test. Completing each zone grants you one Dedigitizer schematic from that zone's list, along with some meat. Complete Zone 1 to get 5,000 meat, Zone 2 to get 10,000 meat, and Zone 3 to get 20,000 meat. While additional meat can be very useful early in an ascension, the difficulty of CyberRealm combat and the adventure cost means you're more likely to complete zones after defeating the naughty sorceress. So how does the CyberRealm keycode measure up? Everything about CyberRealm can be experienced by using the 3D printed server room keys, though only those who own CyberRealm will likely take daily advantage of 10 free CyberRealm combats from the Overclock 10 skill. Likewise, the most useful items and skills, such as Sleep 5 or Synapse Blaster, can be purchased from the mall. Access to process monsters during an ascension can help add tines to the Mr. Store Monodent of the Sea or additional monster options for the Shrunken Head. I rate the CyberRealm keycode 2 out of 5 stars for quality of life. Additional free combats are always useful for item and meat farmers, though other CyberRealm skills and items are of limited usefulness. I rate CyberRealm 2 out of 5 stars for farming. Only the Synapse Blaster's boost to elemental resistances is easily obtainable and relevant to PvP minigames, though if you have access to CyberRealm currency, a few other items like synthetic coffee and eye drops may also be helpful. I rate CyberRealm 1 out of 5 stars for PvP. Likewise, hardcore access to Synapse Blaster and 10 free combats are the most useful elements of CyberRealm for speedrunners. I rate the CyberRealm keycode 2 out of 5 stars for speedruns. I hope this helps you decide if you should pick one up.